All right, truck just came in, due northeast down that valley.
All right, what's the range?
Hold on, I got a rangefinder, 1 second. Hold on, it's usually in here. I try to keep it right on top.
3 mils.
All right, 700 yards.
This is probably just in the back.
I think if we backtrack a bit, skirt southeast, it'll give us a better approach once we get down there. All right, how you doing on water?
Josh drank all mine.
Figures. All right, when we head southeast, we should be able to hit the river. We'll top off. If we hit hardball after that, take it all the way to the approach, we should be good to go by dark. All right, we've got no thermal signatures. We should be good to go. All right, let's roll out.
I got it. I knew right where it was. Okay. 700 yards.
Oh, God, every time.
The man who owns everything but can find nothing, truthfully, has nothing. But on the other hand, it would be very unwise to not keep and own tools that could be used in a life-saving situation. Look at it this way, throughout pretty much all of history, not being prepared for the future would basically be signing your own death warrant.
But in modern times, it's actually very normal to not be prepared at all. And maybe you do have a ton of stuff, but it's not organized and arranged in a way that you can access it quickly. That is what we are going to address today.
How to set up your individual person, your vehicle, and ultimately your home, so that you can quickly access the tools that you need, whatever may come. EDC, let's begin there, because when most people actually start getting serious about firearm ownership or being prepared for an emergency, that's what most individuals start with. A really, really important rule of thumb is that when you're carrying items, you actually put those emergency tools in the same space every single time. This appendix holster has 2 clips. It keeps it balanced on my body no matter how I move. Tourniquet, knife, phone, keys, all of the items that you should and could be carrying should stay in consistent places on your body, because if you frantically need to get into your car, I don't want to be fiddling around trying to find where my key fob is. Now, when I end my day, I place all of my items in my home in the exact same spot. There's 2 benefits to this. Number 1, I am not losing them. I know exactly where they are. And then number 2, my family starts to pick up on, hey, if I need a tourniquet, I know it is either on Dad's right hip or on the nightstand and that exact same spot every single time. Now, maybe some of you have kids and you don't want to leave a firearm out on your nightstand. When you come home from the day, it's not a bad idea to get a small pistol safe. So here's what I do. While everyone is still up and moving about, I may take my pistol off body and put it into the pistol safe. When it's time for me to go to bed, I pull it out, set it on my nightstand, and the first thing I do in the morning is put it back in the safe until I'm ready to leave for the day. There are things that we rely on in case of an emergency. Let's take just my red dot battery for a moment. I know that this Acro dot battery dies around 1 year if I am carrying this every single day. Well, I don't want to get to 1 year, be carrying it, and then figure out, oh, my dot battery is dead. Just like how you don't wait for your phone battery to die 100% and then you charge it. No, we're proactive. So when this dot battery gets changed, I set an alarm on my calendar, on my phone to remind me at 9 months, the next time you're at the range, swap batteries and make sure everything's zeroed and good to go. So that is just one level of being proactive with your equipment and being organized, not just physically, but mentally as well, so that when you own these tools, you can employ them proficiently in case of an emergency. With all that being said, there's EDC Organization. Let's take it out into the real world and start building on that concept.
Guys, let's take 1 minute and talk about how we make content like this for you guys possible for free. It's thanks to companies like Aura. Last week, I Googled Josh's name, not my own, and found out that he lives at I also found out his phone number and all of his wife's information. You see, data brokers sell your information to scammers, spammers, and anyone else who might want to target you. Your full name, email, home address, health records, your relatives, the whole 9 yards, it's all out there. That's why we've switched to using Aura. Aura shows me which data brokers are selling my information and automatically submits opt-out requests for me. Cleaning up my information not only helps reduce the amount of spam we get, but it also protects us from hackers trying to get into our social media accounts, bank accounts, and other sensitive info. Now, I don't know if you saw this or not, but AT&T revealed that over 73 million customer records, both existing and former customers, were released on the dark web. Now, normally we'd have to use super strong passwords, monitor account activity, and consider credit freezes or fraud alerts. But Aura just does all of this for us, and the best part is we don't have to download a ton of different apps to try and combat hackers. If our information was compromised in the AT&T data breach, we don't have to worry about it because Aura is always on once you sign up for it. It's always doing the hard work of keeping us safe, and we value our privacy, and you should too. And right now, you can sign up for a 2-week free trial at aura.com/dirtycivilian. Hit it up, try it out, secure your data.
Emergencies or just sticky situations don't always happen inside of your own home though, and they can't always be fixed with just the tools on body. There's a very popular thing going on where people are building out overlanding rigs, and they're putting all the tools that they can imagine and stuffing that cab full of endless amounts of medical gear and max tracks and so on and so forth. But what are the few key things that you need to at least have organized in a way that you can access them without yard sailing everything out around the parking lot or the side of the freeway? Nick Jones has a pretty good setup here, and we're going to take a minute just to look at covering a few of the key basics that may happen in or around your vehicle. So Nick, let's see what you're working with, what you have in your cab, and how you access some of those tools.
Yeah, so center console, Noco battery jump box. So it's great because, you know, if you're out and about or your wife's out and about in the car and there's no one around, or you don't want somebody else helping your wife jump their car, do it all by yourself, plug that in, jump it right off. Very simple to use. And then as far in the back, things to, you know, like Josh was saying, spare tires and flats and all that good stuff. Having a proper jack stand, now this was a bit excessive. I did put a lift on this, so you know your standard scissor lift for a car that comes in the back isn't gonna lift this, it's not gonna reach it. So having that, having your family also know where those things are at and how to use them, as well as a spare that fits. If you get bigger, oversized tires and stuff, it's smart to get a spare that fits those because your stock one's not gonna work. Impact gun with the correct socket on there to remove the wheels to change the spare, and an air compressor that's all easy access, fix a flat, and some other miscellaneous tools that you never know if you're gonna need when you're out and about.
And here's what it really boils down to. If you are well prepared for all of the big emergencies, I live near a river and I have a raft that I can float my way out of if it overflows, congratulations, you're prepared for that big stuff. But man, if you're not prepared for the small stuff like changing batteries on your pistol optic, or keeping a tourniquet on you, or changing a tire with the appropriate tools, then you're not actually really that prepared for some of those bigger emergencies. So we just wanted to touch on some of those small little things to start getting your foot in the door, staying organized and proactive, and that's gonna set you up for some of those, oh my gosh, this is once in a lifetime or once in a generation situation. And let's take a minute and talk about what that kind of equipment could look like. And then we'll bring it back to the home and talk about how you can be organized before you ever leave your house with that equipment. First, let me tell you a little bit about modern day Minutemen. And I know that that term's been thrown around by a lot of different people over the years, but Minutemen were initially started in the mid-1600s here in America. And the concept was a core group of guys that were even more specialized than just the general militia. And they had the task of being always ready to go on a 3-day mission within 30 minutes. That 30-minute time frame was the standard for them to be able to grab whatever they needed for 3 days and leave home. All of those skills came along with knowing how to employ the tools that they had. And then over time, as the Revolutionary War kicked off, that time frame went from 30 minutes of being ready to 60 seconds, hence the Minuteman. Now, how many of you actually think that you can grab all tools necessary for a 3-day outing in 30 minutes? I know for myself, that could be a little bit of a stretch, but I sure try. And one big thing that does mean is being able to stay flexible on the seasons, where you live, and where you could be going. Now, my loadout here is not perfect for 3 days, but this is what I have in the shop, ready to go, hung up and organized at all times. Do I think that I'm going to need to deploy all of these tools all together tomorrow? Well, let me put it this way. I've never been in a house fire, but I sure own more than one fire extinguisher in my house. First, boots. I may grab these and not even need a rifle. Inside of my boots, I always have a good pair of wool socks. Medical. Again, I may not grab a plate carrier and a rifle, but I always want to know where this is. Now, the rifle itself, there's a little bit more to the story of staying organized on a rifle than just Don't lose it, and a really good way to not lose your rifle is by having it attached to your body. This is a sling from Viking Tactics. This is my preferred one. We do have them on the website, so you can go check that out if you're interested. A rifle itself is, in its own way, a bit of an ecosystem, and those PRS shooters and NRL hunters, they will be able to tell you that there's more to the story than just putting your reticle on the target and pulling the trigger. So let me ask you real quick, what kind of ammo, brand included, was your firearm zeroed with? Was it zeroed with or without a suppressor? How long until the battery dies on your light? If you had to call wind and you were gauging off of your muzzle velocity and everything else, what is the correct wind call on your rifle? What is the deviation between the ammo that you zeroed with and maybe a 55 grain ball from, let's say, Winchester, because they're now shipping out of Lake City as well. And if you have more than one rifle that you like to shoot, it may not be a bad idea to take a 3x5 card and rubber band it around your rifle. Because for a lot of us, we don't shoot every day, we don't shoot every month. It's not a bad idea to have some general organizational notes attached to a potential life-saving tool. Next, a helmet. Again, I love throwing night vision on, and that might mean that I am throwing this on and going for a walk while I don't have a rifle and I may not have a day pack and I may not have a plate carrier. But on top of this, I do have the ability to run comms. Now the down leads can get tangled up on stuff, so I took one wrap and actually tied that up to my earpiece so it stays up out of the way, but it's always on the helmet, as well as iPro. These are a little bit more expensive from OpsCore, but that doesn't mean that you can't go get your own iPro and just get some shot cord and put that iPro onto your helmet. So then you have eyes and ears all together. This is its own setup, and I don't need to go find other parts and pieces around just to get this whole system up and running. The pack itself. This is organized for me to at least be comfortable for a 1 day plus outside. I have water, I have a poncho, I have food, I have extra medical, and a few other goodies in here that are just gonna make life a little bit easier too. So all of these things could be employed together. And I know it gets a little bit crazy to start thinking about putting a plate carrier on here in America, but if you are setting one up, here's a few things to consider. The mags that are on body, I don't have a dump pouch attached to me. So let's say that I lose a mag or I drop a mag because it's empty. You can absolutely pick it back up and turn it around the other way. I shoot enough that if I grab a magazine and it's facing backwards, I can feel that it's facing backwards. Other things like your GP pouch. What I don't want to have happen is pull something out of this GP pouch and then have all other items yard sale and be gone. So if you do have some items that have a tendency to be lost because they're small, not a bad idea to dummy cord it to you or to your kit. Another little trick. I took a small bag. You can do this with Ziploc bags. It doesn't have to be fancy, but this is a small loopholed pouch, and inside are small items. So I have a lighter, I have face paint, I have iodine tablets, battery, electrical tape, a little bit of lube for my rifle. This can all come out in front of me, so I'm not having to fish under my armpit to find small items. And that way I am staying organized. I know that this all goes back into the same spot every single time. The truth of the matter is everyone seems to do this a little bit differently, and you're gonna have to spend some time in your own equipment to make sure that you are actually keeping track of all parts and pieces. Parts go back away in the same place every time, and a good way to do that is to go LARP with the boys. Finding the stuff inside of your pack in the dark, quietly without a flashlight, is great experience, and it forces you to stay organized. All that being said, there was a lot of talking about just general gear before we ever talk about the organization at home, and you have to remember, if your organization at home isn't squared away, finding these things is gonna take a lot longer than 30 minutes. So let's go and look at how we can actually organize some of this equipment at home every day.
All right, welcome to my home office / armory. Before we get into the organization of it, I want to make a really important point, and that is, why do guys like us have so much gear like this? Well, truth be told, if you never need this stuff, that's fine, but what we're actually doing here is carrying on the legacy of preparedness for our kids. It only takes a generation for information to be lost. So if we don't keep this fire alive, who will? I don't want my kids or even your kids to have to rely on joining a standing army or military, or going through the police academy, or watching a YouTube video, God forbid, to figure out this information for themselves. The truth is, our ancestors got comfortable, And if wide-scale violence in this country comes in 100 years, none of us will be alive to see it. So what habits are we passing down to our kids so that they don't have to learn from someone else? It becomes a part of their lifestyle. That's what this stuff is all about. Not today and us, it's about them. Okay, so I know most of you guys don't have a huge room that you can put all of your bells and whistles in. I get it. Back whenever I lived in an apartment, I only had a bedroom and a kitchen. Back at my old house, I only had a closet. So don't think that you need a whole room to put all of your stuff in. Just take bits and pieces of some things that I've used here and some tactics that I've used here and apply it to your own living situation. Josh kind of showed you guys what the individual loadout looks like and how you should have like a kind of like a Minuteman loadout that you can access quickly. But what about all the other gear and all the other stuff you have? I went with the cubby approach to organize types of tools. So over here on the right, I have gun, kit type accessories organized in batches. And on the left, I have like survival type stuff because they're two very different things. So I went with a very cheap cubby system that I just got online. It's not fancy, it's not expensive, and it's not well built, but it does the job. And with each one of these, I have them labeled with just simple gaffer's tape, super cheap, and wrote on there what it is. So like, for example, I have face and head. That means anything that can go on my face or my head, it goes in there. Balaclavas, scrim, beanies, things like that. And then helmet accessories. And then over here we have gas masks and extra filters. We also have tons of rifle parts because I keep pretty much my old rifles loaded out at all times, but I do have a ton of extra. We also have weapon lights, slings, eyes and ears, zip ties, and other things that you can use to bind things to your guns or your kit. So each one of these bins is kind of like a dump pouch for that particular type of item. So I actually don't have a great way to store blades right now. So I just keep, by the way, I just put scrim on all these windows because it's nice, it diffuses the light. I can work in the dark even in the middle of the day because I'm a vampire like that. But I keep a lot of extra blades up here as well as an extra pistol up here just to kind of keep it up off the ground, keep them all in the same spot, and they're easy to find. I know if I can't find a knife, it's up there. You'll notice a theme here. None of this organizational gear is expensive. It's all cheap, crappy stuff that I found on Amazon or used on Facebook Marketplace. For gloves drive me crazy because every dude loves gloves, every dude loves flashlights. Doesn't matter where I go, I'm constantly like, ooh, I want to get that new pair, right? So just a simple little hanger right here that I think is normally for like socks, or I don't know what it's for, but I use it for glove organizations. I put my favorite gloves up there and I can go to them anytime I want. I do hang one of my go-to belts up here on the wall. And over here, I do have a, this is actually for vehicles. It's a fire extinguisher just because there's a lot of stuff going on up in here. There's a lot of like lighting rigged up and I don't want this room to cause the entire house to burn down. So over here on the left, we have the survival type tools that can go in these packs and kits. We have like cooking stuff, which has extra little propane tanks, as well as a jet boil and an MSR kit. We have food, which keeps, you know, of course, the really important ramen noodles and extra MREs, water filtration and procurement items, and then all different types of things to start a fire with, and then cold weather stuff, which has some hypothermia blankets and a couple of other things. We also have comms, sleep systems, and 3 bins for medical, which is kind of important because there's a lot of different types of medical. There's bleeding, there's trauma, there's airway, and so I just keep a bunch of medical stuff in here. This one has mostly bleed, this is airway, and then quickly I can access extra trauma shears if I need to. This is one of my favorite ones. It is my Milsim one, and in here we have all kinds of dangerous BBs, as well as chem lights over here, extra nylon parts, and props for all of these awesome Dirty Civilian videos that you guys see, the ones that can fit in here anyway. So that's just a quick look at how I organize these things. And within those bins, there's not a ton of organization. They are like dump pouches. I throw stuff in there and I know, hey, when it's time to build out a new loadout or when it's time to replenish something I've used, I can go to that bin, look through it really quickly and pull it out. This is not meant to be super fast access like your Minuteman loadout is. This is to resupply. Think about your home kind of like a fob or a headquarters. That's what you would do. Another pet peeve of mine is Velcro items that are just like scattered about. It drives me crazy. How do you store it? So I did splurge a little bit for a Velcro panel, and I just throw anything with Velcro that's not on kit, I just plaster it up on here. I actually have 2 more of these, one that is completely filled up with patches, and it makes it pretty handy for whenever I need something. I can just go rip it off, put it back up. It's pretty much good to go. It's absolutely worth it if Velcro stuff drives you nuts. On the opposite wall, it's where I keep all the carriers that I use most frequently. I know this is not realistic for most people, I get it. Again, these are just some ideas. If all you have is a 1 plate carrier or 1 chest rig and a backpack, still just getting that stuff up off the ground so it's not just sitting around, it's a good idea. So I just invested in some like really heavy duty metal hangers, which you can buy in bulk from Amazon for next to nothing. I went through like 4 different kinds of hangers to find the ones that could support the weight of a loaded out plate carrier, and these are amazing. We'll put links to all this stuff, all the cheap stuff that I got to organize with, in the description, but packs on lower row, these are the most popular packs that I use and that I test, because that is another part of our job, is evaluating this gear, see what works, see what falls apart, trying to find the best bang for the buck for a lot of this gear. So chest rigs that I use often, plate carriers that I use often, and then a couple of absolute like dump pouches. Basically they're duffel bags, so I can throw a ton of kit in there, head out the door for a video project, and we're good to go. Over here in this area, I didn't need a desk to work at until I started acquiring all these different sorts of radios and mesh network LoRa boards and all this like weird stuff. So I eventually bought a really cheap desk, and this houses most of the electronics and things to charge batteries with, charge radios, and any sort of like electronics that I use. Obviously with my job, I use a lot of camera equipment, so I will store extra GoPros, action cams, keep them all charged. Pretty much at any given time, I can charge everything on this table, whether it's GoPro batteries, external batteries for night vision recorders, extra phones, because we have numerous phones with ATAC, and that's pretty much what we do. I do have a printer, and this is not something I would normally talk about in a tactical video, but this printer is freaking ballin'. If you're like me or any other human on the planet, we hate printers. This one has been amazing. I've never had to refill it. So if you're doing like homeschooling or printing off a lot of stuff, oh my gosh, this thing is amazing. I don't know why I'm talking about that in this video. As far as rifles go, we use a lot of different rifles in what we do for our work, which is kind of awesome, but I've just ordered simple little wall hangers. They were not fancy ones, nothing too expensive, honestly very cheap. I think it was like $10 for a pack of 4. So I keep the 300 blackout with a little mag holder that has mags. Also have the Q-Fix 308, and then moving on down, the LMT, and then a Frankenstein build. I like just keeping the rifles up off the ground instead of in a closet. I'm still able to access it all because of the security plan that I have, which we'll talk about here in a second. So they all still stay safe and at the same time accessible. So the closet, obviously clothes go in the closet. I'm kind of OCD about the clothes organization because I have a lot of different camouflages, a lot of different jackets, a lot of different coats. You guys seem to love that, so I'm not going to apologize for it. So over here we have woobies and more like heavier duty jackets. We have work pants and then camis, as well as like the full uniform with them. We also have rain jackets all together, and normal pants that I wear every single day, normal button-ups that I wear every single day, t-shirts for everyday use, and then beyond that I have just like things that I don't use very often but I want quick access to, you know, just in case a jacket would save my life. But the best part about the closet is honestly housing a lot of the other junk that doesn't really ever get used out here in the main office. And so I highly recommend just getting some totes and get some cool ones. Go ahead and get the good looking like gray and black ones, because for me it's just like if I have all gray totes and then one that's red for Christmas, it drives me insane and I can't get anything done that day. I'd rather spray paint that sucker than let it be seen. Anyway, so we have totes, which are great for just your miscellaneous gear. Inevitably you will move on from certain kit, you will move on from certain items, or you buy something and it just doesn't work and you know you're never going to use it. You haven't had the chance to sell it yet, so just dump it in a bin. I know that if I can't find anything out here on the floor, it's probably in one of these. So I have like miscellaneous 1, miscellaneous 2 boxes, because I do keep a lot of boxes that gear comes in, which is, by the way, like EOTech cases or Aimpoint cases. When you get those, save them, because they're amazing for organizing a lot of that stuff in that cubby system. We also have just electronics. I have like tons of like extension cords, power strips, you name it, just tons of stuff in there, extra charging cables, the things you just acquire over the years, you know, moving multiple times. Also has nylon, because again, you buy a plate carrier, you buy a chest rig, or you get one on tax swap and you think you're gonna love it, and then after wearing it a couple times, you're like, man, this thing sucks. You haven't had time to sell it yet, or the people on tax swap don't want to pay you enough for it, which is a common thing, and you just throw it in the bin, man. Keep it for a rainy day or for a buddy who needs one. My friends have full access to any of this stuff that I don't use. They can just have it. Didn't I give you a bag one time, Nick?
Couple.
Okay, there you go. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. Now let's talk about how you secure all of this stuff, because this is a dangerous and expensive room, especially if you have kids. Most people should opt for a safe. Like, let's be real. Most people don't have a full office, and even if you do, it's a good idea to have a safe in there. I do have a couple of small safes that I keep certain things in, but there's also the layered security approach, where you build enough hard walls and locked doors between said person and your dangerous, expensive items, and it works the same, if not better. So at any given time, I'm not going to give you the floor layout of my home, but at any given time, there are 4 to 5 hardened doors between anyone in the house or anyone on the outside of the house and this room. Basically, you're not getting in without me. Also, if all you're working with is a closet, or just a really small room, you can always go on Amazon or to any like hardware store, buy a nicer lock. Maybe one that's that has like the punch code that you can put in, but you can upgrade the locks on your doors to secure your home and your valuable assets, not just from bad guys, but just from even family members who like to walk around the house and play with things. That has been a big thing for me, is training my kids to not look at these as toys, even though they see dad playing with them on YouTube every week. It's been a big challenge to keep them interested in it, but also just wary enough of them to not want to mess with things when dad's not around. And on top of that, you have the hardened doors, locked doors, and just the house rule, you don't go upstairs without dad. So these are things to think about, and they're not something that you should overlook. Take the time to really think it through and create a good plan for housing this stuff, for organizing it so you can quickly refill your Minuteman loadouts, and invest a little bit into organization. It'll keep you much calmer, much more able to accomplish your work, peace of mind. I cannot tell you how many armories and gun rooms that I have designed and built out for various people in the industry, and it always doesn't just help them organize things, it gives them a better workflow and more peace of mind, and they're just more efficient humans in general. Now, does this room stay this organized all the time? Absolutely not. Every single week, it looks like Tornado Drew came in here and just threw everything around.
Oh my God.
It happens. Like, you're gonna make messes, and I allow myself 1 week of chaos every single week. But the whole fam knows, like, hey man, once the weekend rolls around, dad needs 1 to 2 hours to reorganize his stuff, resupply all of his plate carriers and packs and backpacks and food and MREs. And so it's just kind of baked into the family schedule that dad needs his time to take care of his gear so that our family can be more prepared and know how to use this stuff and employ it quickly. So yeah, it gets super messy. Just take time once a week, knock it out, set yourself up for success. Guys, organizing your gear, it's not about having tons of stuff. And you should know, when you watch YouTube channels like ours or other people and you see what they have, like, don't get a false sense of reality about that, because a lot of us have been doing this for a very long time. I've been buying and collecting stuff, and I've had stuff passed down to me for the better part of 15, 20 years. This is not something, I'm almost 40. Like, let's be real. Whenever I was in my 20s, I started doing this. So don't get some false sense of like, I should have this or I should have that. Like, no, take time and be wise with your purchases. And make sure that every piece of gear or kit that you get, before you organize it, like, do you actually know how to use it well? So with that being said, it doesn't just end with organizing it. You also need to take time to teach your family about it, to teach them where things are at so that they can find it and have the skills to use it in case you are unavailable. So that being said, thank you guys so much. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters. You guys keep us going every single week. And if you are interested in Patreon, they get first access to us because we have thousands of questions in DMs and YouTube comments every single week, but they get first dibs with their DMs. Also, one of the biggest ways that you guys can support us is by subscribing. Obviously, YouTube does not like to push our content, and you guys kind of keep it going. And leave a comment if you want, because algorithm. Beyond that, we also just opened up a store on our website to have some of our favorite knives and blades for being out there in the field, as well as slings for our rifles and a couple of other things like some extra merch, so you can always go and pick those up. And it helps us out, and we appreciate it, and it gets you guys good gear. So thank you guys, and we'll catch you next time.
I hate that. Let's begin. I hate that.
The man who owns everything and can find nothing, truthfully has nothing.
Stop. But they're not organized in a way that you can quickly access them. So, quickly access them. Access them. Josh, tell me what to say.